Welcome to SEO Conspiracy.com. Today, it's not Halloween, but it's Halloween every day with Google, especially these days. And she's part of the SEO Conspiracy family now. I have the great pleasure to welcome back Christine Schlesinger to talk about the top horror stories, the top technical SEO horror stories. The worst of the worst. Bonjour, Christine.
Bonjour. Comment allez-vous? That's the end of my French.
Comment je vais? Well, she just asked how I was, and I was admitting off camera that I think I hit my limit of sanity for as far as knowing where I'm in space and time. and
Yeah.
why don't they freeze us for like 3 or 6 months, put us like in one of those oxygen tank or whatever. Yeah, just put us to sleep. Like, come on, wake us up.
Or,
And when you killed all the zombies, wake us up, please.
And although I don't subscribe to the fact that we're living in a simulation, if we are, maybe they can just unplug us for a couple of months or skip forward and just erase the memory between now and then.
Yeah, Matrix style, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, it doesn't hide the fact that we've already talked about it. We are privileged amongst all the human species. SEOs in particular are in this unique position of, and I love how you convinced me to change my mind on that topic of the fact that no, we definitely don't need to be visible and have standards and all that stuff and be official. We are very good hidden in the corner. Nobody knows about us. They say Google dominate. Now, what's the exact quote? Google is the entry gate to the world or something like that, or to the internet. Whatever. Google dominates the world. And guess who dominates Google? We do. And nobody knows we exist. In the 451 pages of that Big Tech Hearing report, I didn't see the word SEO once. But now, she told us some stories here and there because we've shot a bunch of videos, but you never did it. Let's do a top 5. Okay, top 5.
Top 5.
Started from the 5th, and you'll keep your. I'll try to guess. I won't say in advance. I'll try to guess what. I don't think I can guess the top 5 and 4, maybe 3. I can guess probably the 1 and 2. But I'll be curious to know what would be your top 5.
Well, 3 of them are going to come from one website that shall remain nameless.
Yeah. Okay. I know. I see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
But the worst 5. Of top 5. Going from
Technical
5 to
or
1.
Just mistakes?
Well, it has to be. It doesn't matter as long as you lose ranking. Okay,
Okay.
You don't have to focus on the technical aspect of it. It could just be human error.
Human error. Okay.
Is allowed.
So number 5 would be, this isn't really in order because they're all pretty awful, would be when I worked for the U.S. government for a while. And I worked on one of the sites that had a blog that back when you could see PageRank in the toolbar had a PageRank of 10 on a blog.
Ooh.
And I sat in a meeting one day, and 10, for those who are new to the industry, 10 was as high as you could get on the PageRank toolbar. And it was even higher than Google. Google was a 9. So that means I could pretty much optimize that blog for anything and it would rank, but no one had ever optimized it. So the visitor count was only about 80, 90,000 a month. And they're like, well, that's really low. We need to fix that. So they didn't consult me because I was actually there as an accessibility lead, just sometimes did SEO. So I sat in a meeting and in the meeting, they were talking about how they took the blog offline. And I was like, what do you mean you got rid of the blog? And they're like, I go, you mean the blog with 10,000 pages of content and 800,000 links, mostly EDU and government? And they go, yeah, we replaced it with Tumblr. The social media guru at the time told them to replace it with Tumblr.
Oh.
So, as anyone who doesn't know, the reason Tumblr's never really taken off is it can't rank at all in Google. It doesn't have the capability. Maybe it did at the end. I don't know. But
at the beginning, it was okay, but then, yeah.
Well, at the time we were doing it. No rankings in Tumblr. Tumblr did not rank.
Porn took over Tumblr, and Google didn't like that too much.
And that might be why. But the point being is it was unrankable. And so the only way to get traffic was to buy a spot on the homepage. So they'd buy a spot and they would get like 40,000 visits, but they weren't relevant because it's just a plug on the homepage. And then they would get like no visits. And I was like, well, did you at least move the content over? No. You had 10,000 pages of content. You didn't move any of it over? They go, no. Did you redirect the links, the 800,000 links? Did you do that? No. Of course, at the time, we didn't know it was impossible to rank Tumblr. We figured that out. So I was like, so you blew away 10,000 pages of content, 800,000 links.
And a page rank 10.
And a page rank of 10 for Tumblr. Now, I did find out later the social media company had a relationship with Tumblr. And by getting Tumblr and all these government blogs, they got them high exposure.
Got it.
So I'm not saying they did something nefarious, but I'm just saying it appeared that it may not have been totally kosher.
It was the New York Times who messed up something with the archives, or I don't think it was it the New York Times or one of the New York Times properties for sure. Yeah, I know it used to be a magazine. What's his name? Very important, very interesting magazine, and the name is just I can't remember it. But they just pressed delete.
I remember that.
The archives. Okay. Exit. Oops. Blump. Everything gone. The whole history from the beginning of the gone. It might seem even crazy, but at the level of Google, I'm pretty sure it's not an hoax. It's not from the sources I got it from. It seems legit that it was 2 years ago. There was a supposed update again. Barry Schwartz's business of finding updates everywhere, and a lot of people were complaining that they were losing index pages. And supposedly the truth was that Google lost the indexed one version, like the whole thing, and they had to go back. so of course your pages did well. They didn't exist back then by the time when they rolled back. But it was not like a usual rollback. It was really because they lost the whole thing. I could not believe it that at the level of Google it could happen. Then I talked to my friend, former CEO of Quant.com, who built also a search engine. I was like, yeah, man, if it's pretty rare. It has to be a lot of variables that come together into play, and it's just like statistically it's very rare, but it could happen. and we often forget that Google has no superpowers as far as the way it's hosted and all that stuff. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
it's no
It's way
different.
more, yeah.
It's just
It's
data
way more
centers and
basic, I
stuff.
think.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, go ahead. Yeah, you were saying that even search, even just the fact that people think that there's an ounce of intelligence in Google because of that AI trend. Let's remind everyone that Google has the brain of a
A baby.
not. I was gonna say like a like an ant or whatever.
Yeah.
That the level of understanding of the language is, yeah, it swallows words that it changes into mathematical entities. That they separate them by vectors. Then there's distance, but yeah, where we've been far from your human hair
That's okay.
to Google
But
also messing up. But yeah, everybody messes up. Yeah.
I will add just that real quick to what you were just talking about. There's a misnomer that Google does straight NLP, which is the holy grail. They do NLU with a little bit of NLP, which means they don't really understand language. They need like schema to interpret it. They have to map entities to definitions. So, and the AI gives them definitions over time, which is what RankBrain helps them do. So yeah, it's like an infant learning its first language as a 6-month-old or 9-month-old, whenever babies start talking.
And they have to build algorithms that will work for all the languages of all of the entire world and all the variation of the same English. I mean, I think Spanish alone is how many? Maybe like 25 countries of Spanish as an official language. If in the US, like how many different Spanish communities do you have?
Yeah, and then you get into like some languages don't have future tense, some don't have past tense, some have dialects that don't understand each other in the same country. So there's so many variations on language that it's a massive task. And so when people think like, oh, they just do NLU, it's like NLP. I mean, like, no, that's you and me talking right now. We understand each other without sitting in our heads and going, okay, so that entity is going to map to that vector, and those are close together, so they mean something to each other. My brain just does that automatically, and that's true NLP. And as long as Google's using schema, they're still using NLU because they need help interpreting what content's on the site.
I like to use the word Google. I like to say Google can analyze content
That's a good way to say it. Yeah.
Instead of understand.
Yeah, understand.
Yeah, understand. But yeah, let's go back to these human errors because on that level of okay, I have the press website. Let me give you another one. Big, not former government website gone private type of thing. Telecommunication. I can't go into. I can't say each the website, but big. Okay, big, like real big.
Yeah, mine was like that. Mine was big.
And CDN, and of course the CEO was like, okay, we have all those servers everywhere. To please Googlebot, I'm gonna get a server in Mountain View near Googlebot. They rebuilt the entire site, changed the entire internal linking, and did not update the server that Googlebot was visiting. So everything was fine on their screen. The website was working. Everybody was happy, except Googlebot was not happy at all because it was all like 404 and and they even messed up like the redirects and all. Human errors. It's basically always comes down to at the end of the day, that's always the weak link in any technology related situation. When you, especially hacking or all that stuff, that's what I've in my head.
Yeah, also because they often don't put SEO as the lead group on websites, so often the issues are a surprise to the SEO as well as the site because the SEO wasn't part of the process on developing the plan for rolling something out. And if the SEO been there, they would have gone, you can't do that. But they don't often do that. So then the SEO wakes up one morning, traffic's off a cliff, and they have to spend the next 24, 36 hours of their life figuring out why and getting it back. So the best thing companies can do is put SEOs in the main part of the process and strategy and have their fingers in all of it, as opposed to like tagging them on to the after fact.
Yeah, I wanted to get you into this discussion a little bit later on, but yeah, let's do it.
We can do it later on.
No, we can do it now. It doesn't matter because I know it's one of your pet peeves, the fact that SEO is not an add-on. And I remember, I like how you use that word add-on because, yeah, I thought like an add-on or a plugin or just, I see, it's unbelievable. I see, okay, I install WordPress, I put Yoast, and that's it. SEO is done. All right, great guys. You're going to go very far with that. And it makes a world of difference when SEO is taken into account, like at the beginning, in the early stages of the project.
Yes. Even before if you're building a new site, even before you decide what technologies to use.
Sure.
I have people in groups going, well, the C-level just wants to move to Angular because they think JavaScript frameworks are better. And it's like, well, they're not better. Angular is awful unless you have Universal. And even still, it's really difficult to work with for SEO, which is funny because Google developed Angular. But you can go to React, which is much better. But if you don't need to pay for the programmers for React and Angular and to deal with all that intricacy and complexity, and do better in WordPress, then use WordPress, because WordPress might do much better in SEO than, say, Angular or React, depending on how they're distributed or implemented. And then on the other side, if your site I have sites that are on WordPress with 10 million pages, and really they need now to move to something else, right, outside of WordPress. It's too big for WordPress. You need an SEO in the beginning because everything from how the site's delivered to page speed to expensive programmers, all that stuff has to be factored into a website from the start. And SEOs often are keenly involved in understanding which is the best choice. If they're technical SEO, not all SEOs, content marketer or something, not the same. But
I remember one client when I was like, okay, it's impossible. We can't do it because it was a huge press website. Today, they specialized on Android, and they use WordPress, but the size of that thing and the fact that they changed everything, like the core, okay? They changed the core of WordPress, so they could not even upgrade the damn thing anymore. They put sometimes themselves in situations that could be so easily avoided if it was just taken into account before. What's going to be very funny is, I don't know why people didn't realize yet that things are very different on a mobile phone. and you can't be so fancy with all those special effects and the stuff that you put on the desktop version of your website. I don't know. why do you think people are still? I don't see out there anybody really being actively talking about how you must be not only like it's not just the technical aspect of um, do like a mobile friendly website and so on is search with a caps S, okay, and how technologies like Google Discover, which is predictive search, where you have new levers, for example, engagements, that is kind of and there's very little talk. It feels like people are still stuck, at least in France. I don't know so much about the US, but in France, they're stuck in this vision of SEO for Google, the computer, the desktop version. And they still I remember a client 90% traffic from mobile, and I'm like, guys, maybe it's time to start to build a website for mobile first. Build it on the mobile, then make it responsive for the desktop. When you have 90% of your traffic is for mobile, like, what are you still doing with a like responsive plugin on your website? Like, come on, get serious.
Well, and also, if you're just from a code side, if you're developing a new site, you kind of want to start with the mobile and move to the desktop because it's easier to find your breakpoints and to add to the design than it is to subtract to get down to mobile. So if you start with a perfect mobile site, you can make it an easily desktop responsive site if you want to add stuff to it, but on the media query set. But yeah, it's a little harder when you've designed it all for desktop and you're like, well, I got this page that scrolls for like 5 minutes now because I designed it for desktop. So, yeah.
You've also okay, you guys had fun building those 2,000 words of Google text that has no interest. And then, of course, you got to get rid of it for the mobile. and
you can't, though, because of mobile first, you have to have the content you want to rank for on your mobile site.
Yeah, but does it look good?
Remove it.
It doesn't look good.
No, but I'm just saying you can't remove it. So now you got to figure out how you handle text, which is a usability UX designer. That's one thing I see way too little of. I see way too little conversion specialists and UX specialists used on websites. They like having a designer create things, but the designer's not a usability specialist or a conversion specialist. So, you get like tons of accordion boxes, or you get like too much on one page and you're in mobile and you're scrolling like this. And it's really, for sites that can afford a usability person and a conversion person, it's really good to have them do an audit on your mobile site to make sure it's not too desktop looking, too desktop heavy.
Working on the Southeast Asian market was eye-opening for me, especially going over there and looking at the technology people were using and the behaviors. It's not mobile first; it's mobile only. Okay, they don't have computer. Everything is on the mobile, and we're not talking iPhone 12 Pro Max. We are talking like. You're lucky if they got like an iPhone 4, okay? Or some, yeah, let's not even go Apple. Let's go like Android from like generation, I can't even tell you, but those phones are old. And you can't assume that you have to know your audience. That's the whole game, I think, today. And if you don't, you're
well, you also have to, you also have to know, because there are industries where desktop is prevalent or prominent, like B2B. Publishers I work with, they still have like 50% desktop. E-commerce as well, because e-commerce people mostly in the United States use work computers. Now during the pandemic, that's different because everyone's home. But when people start going back to offices, there'll be a shift of people to their office computers to shop, because that's where in the US prior to the pandemic, everyone shopped, was at work. So, because at the weekends they want to do weekend stuff. So when they're at work, their lunch break, or when they get in the morning, they do a little shopping. So you really have to know specifically from your analytics who your users are, and never assume when you go into a site just because it's a certain industry or type that you know what devices they're going to be using. Because it could surprise you. I was very surprised when I worked for a $2 billion e-commerce company in 2019, early 2020, that I'm sorry, 2018, early 2019, that they still had 50 to 60% desktop users, not mobile. So
I was blown away when a client in the freight business told me, it was 3 years ago, less than 5 years ago for sure. Uh, all those boats on the oceans and the seas, they're still using Excel to manage all that.
yeah,
And I think they're just starting now to get on the digital bandwagon. You're like, whoa, that. I mean, I guess it worked. So don't
why
change it
change
if
it?
it if
It's
you.
universal. Everyone can have Excel, so not everyone else has. Yeah, I could see that. And software as a service, to do all that stuff, you'd have to have connections and things. And if you're in the middle of the ocean, there's probably a really good chance you have nowhere to connect. So
Exactly, and they figure it out. And I've seen, especially in the search awards, some entries about very fancy software like 360 view cameras to check the like the safety of the boat and all those. And I'm like, guys, you are so out of touch with the reality of the business. They are not. I mean, good luck selling that. Like 360 cameras to look around the boat. Like, why do I care? Like, we'll know soon enough when the containers are bailing out of the ship. Don't worry, we'll know. We don't need cameras for that.
well, the other thing too is with websites. I'll see a client, like I did a site bulb report with their keyword analysis, and it's like high mobile, high desktop, almost zero tablet. So that could mean nobody uses a tablet. It also could mean there's something wrong with your tablet site, and maybe we need to check out your tablet site. So you can never assume device usage indicates user intent, because your site may be really bad on mobile. And so people go, I'm just going to do that when I get back to my desktop. So when you see low numbers in a device, you should check your site in that device and make sure that it's actually functioning properly.
And I think even Apple shut down the referrals for some of the stuff. So you could be missing a big chunk of.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna go. Okay, guys, chill. Christine, you remember when Not Provided came out and people,
Yes,
SEOs
I
thought
know where
there
I
was
know
the
where
end
it
of the
was.
world? Okay.
I was at SEO Oktoberfest when the announcement came out, and we instantly had a massive discussion about it. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and we were drinking beers. So
It was the end of the world. People were jumping out of the windows. And we figured it out. Okay, that's what SEOs do. They adapt or die. And
yeah,
then if you're still standing after 20 plus years or whatever, or almost 20 years, it means something. So let's go to. We spent 28 minutes on the pilot. Let's move up the ladder to number 4.
okay. Oh, this is a quick one. It's a small one, but it was an important one, and that is I had a client who runs a outfitters in the United States. It means like rent boats and do hikes and stuff like that. And I sent her an email to shut down the DNS for this domain that she had, a subdomain that wasn't being used but being crawled. And I said, whatever you do, don't do any of the others. And I listed them. And I said, send this to your hosting provider, because I couldn't get access. And just copy this and send this, because I said, turn this one off. Do not touch these. And I woke up in the morning and the site was offline.
Oops.
And it was 4 days before their largest weekend of the year. where they got like 20% of their revenues for the weekend. It was actually about 5 days before. And so it took 8 hours to get that site back online. And because this is the first time Google had done this on any site, there used to be a window with Google, about 2 days. If you made a mistake and you fixed it, Google didn't pick it up. You didn't have an effect on your rankings. But she went down about 25% in her rankings for the next week.
Really?
So we had to do some serious Facebook advertising. Yeah, because as soon as Google saw she was offline, right before the holiday weekend, they just instantly were like, okay,
Wow.
well, yeah. And I don't know how it affected the rankings that quickly. I just know it did. So we paid a lot in Facebook advertising to get her to her normal traffic. And then the next week she was fine, all back to normal, everything back to where it was. But that was a big one because the client didn't know not to take it off, what a DNS was, didn't even know. That's why I wrote it exactly. But she tried to translate it and write it herself. And then when she did that, she told them to take the main domain offline. So that was kind of a funny one.
Well, let's rebound on this and let's talk a couple of minutes about the importance of hosting, because so many people start with shared hosting on those cheap hosting services, and nothing wrong with it. If in fact you do have a WordPress blog with 100 articles or whatever, yeah, why pay more? But if you start to get serious, especially when you do e-commerce and you don't take hosting seriously, I'm talking like sysadmin, okay, like someone who can. My sysadmin, I can have a client going on TV. And could be 100,000 connection within like 30 seconds, and the site will handle it because he knows. I mean, I can't even understand what he says when he talks to me. Like the words he uses are not even in Wikipedia. So what do you want me to do? But all I know is that he can. Because he built websites like some of those like QVC, and he told me it's crazy. I mean, it's insane. When that starts to hit, when they pitch the products, it gets heavy. So you do the public, the press, PR outreach, you bust your ass to get on TV, and then your site is out. Good job.
I worked with a company this is a long time ago, that handled Martha Stewart's IPO as a website back before cloud. So we had to set up 90 servers. And the team that I worked with, I didn't have to watch them, but the sysadmins of about 6 people spent like 2 weeks just maintaining those 90 servers to make sure they did not go down during her initial IPO offering. So they lived at work for that entire time because they were just servers. They weren't cloud. You didn't buy cloud hosting back then. If you had a site that big, you owned your own servers, and you might put the servers in a server location, but you still owned your own servers. And so that was the craziest thing I think I've ever seen people do, is do the architecture for her IPO. And we were just this little company in Virginia. We weren't even allowed to say we worked with her because we were in the countryside of Virginia, near West Virginia. And the New York Times back then did not like the concept that we were this little podunk country town.
Got it.
And so we couldn't even say we worked with them at the time. But that was the funniest. But with hosting now, especially WordPress, generally if I'm doing WordPress, I'm giving it over to somebody who doesn't have an IT team. So I always do managed hosting. I tell them, spend that extra $20 a month, because the managed host, I use WP Engine. People have different preferences, but the customer service is fantastic. My client can get on there, chat with somebody, they'll fix it, no cost, all done. No hacking will happen, or if it does, they'll restore the site because they always have a backup. and they'll check your site and make sure anything that was hacked is, undone. If you don't do that and you pay for an $8 server somewhere and you get hacked, and on WordPress, it's almost guaranteed that at some point, lowest common denominator on your site gets, attacked by a hacker bot, then you're going to spend a lot of money trying to get your site back and a lot of time. I know people that have spent weeks trying to get their site back off a cheap hosting service because they got infected at the database level and they don't know how databases, so they didn't know how to fix it. And they didn't want to spend, thousands of dollars to get it fixed. So they literally rebuild their sites. So I'm a big advocate of managed hosting. Also with managed hosting for WordPress, you get faster speeds because they optimize the stack to load properly. They handle security. WP Engine has an internal team that tests their security all the time. I've never had a site hacked on there, so I've never had to go back to a client and go, oh, your site's down because it got hacked. Let's restore it. So, and I'm not saying they're the only one, just the one I use. Although they just took out the ability to use HT-Access, so they may not be the one I use anymore going forward. Yeah.
Well, you can actually, you can. It's just easier, but you can do without HT-Access. You can do everything from the back office of the server. Every single thing that you put on inside the HT-Access, but the WordPress is vastly used, so of course it's going to be the main target for hackers, because they go for I mean, if you go for
low-hanging fruit.
Exactly, and we've talked about this. It's not even real hackers, it's just bots that crawl the web. So it's all automated.
Like someone bought a bot kit as affiliate marketer and just wants to put a link on 1,000 sites or something. So yeah, exactly.
Not very hard. The issue becomes when like this press website that started as a blog about Android phones.
I wonder if we're talking about the same one. We'll have to talk later.
No, because it's a French website, so.
Oh, okay. Then we're competing against each other.
So competing, yeah, because it's in French, so they don't speak English.
Yeah, they have their French.
But the you start as a little blog, and then you don't. I mean, it's hard to manage growth, and then one day you wake up and it's too late. It's too big, complicated, very complicated. If you don't have, we've talked about that because, again, it's at a different level. But once you start to get serious about things, not only SEO should not be just an add-on, you must have permanent staff. Like SEOs on staff. I have clients who have one person in the team. It's so boring that every week it's a different one. All day, what they do is they stare at the logs, monitoring, okay? They just monitor the logs. And they have those triggers that light up when quote-unquote important page is not performing well enough, so they need to they relink it. It's easy. the only real SEO asset that gets result fast, called link. But one person just looks at those logs all day long, every day of the entire year. Think about it. How important that becomes for when you start to get serious, and when you, especially when in those type of old school companies where they don't even understand the fucking internet, okay? the SEO has to hustle until the pie, okay, the traffic pie, the SEO part is big enough, and you have to do whatever it takes. If you work for the company, don't ask for help. You gotta hustle, prove that you are worth it, then you'll take over, and you can block a redesign or whatever, something going into production that's not SEO optimized. But if you don't hustle well enough and that you part, okay, the traffic, it's very simple. That's how they do things. They focus on the most important. And if in this case, the case I have in my head, when my friend got into the company, SEO was maybe Google was less than 7% of the traffic. And when it started to go above 25-30%, they started to take him seriously. Before, he had no voice.
I think though that is an unfortunate way that we have to do it, which should change. I really wish there was a way to market SEO 101 classes to C-level executives, because they're often the problem in the company. They do direct down, edicts that are anti-SEO, and if they had SEO people that they trusted first, especially someone in the C-level position, so like a digital CMO, not the CMO because that's marketing, but some chief digital officer who handled all that stuff and brought tech and marketing together to handle the SEO portion, then those decisions would be informed from the beginning and they wouldn't force top-down decisions that are negative for the site. So then the SEO has 7,000 in traffic, right? Like you just said, and has to prove that SEO works. But I guarantee that 7,000 in traffic because nobody at the top understood how SEO works. Because if you don't understand how SEO works, and you know that your team, who you already pay, can bring you in millions and millions of dollars if you just give them the authority to do the SEO properly, you would go, yes, of course. Why wouldn't I? That's free traffic because these people are already here. I'm already paying them. I already have content writers, so now they write content SEO. And I already have technical people. Now they do the technical things the SEO tells them to do so they don't make mistakes. And, even the biggest site, I can tell you, if I took a team of the top SEOs that I know and we went in there, we would find enough to give you 10, 20%, 30% boosts, because almost every site in America, I don't know about outside America, does not run SEO strategy from the top. It runs it from the middle, maybe directors, maybe a VP, but they still take it from the C level down. So I've been in so many, because I'm a consultant.
Interesting what you say. Very interesting.
I've been in so many situations as a consultant where the CEO has to believe it or they won't let it happen. And so they need a C-level exec who can say, I know you don't believe this, but I know this works and we're going to do it because this will bring us revenue. And then if it doesn't, then you can take myself to the cleaners. But so that the SEO isn't fighting from the level down, from the level up. Poor SEO is sitting there like, hey guys, we need to do this on a page. And everyone above them's like, maybe, I don't know. Can you prove that to us? Could you do the research and send us a document? Yeah, we're going to read that. We decided that we don't actually agree with that. So we're not going to do it. So since it has to be bottom up, like you're saying, prove it. But even when you prove it, they don't always believe it. One of the sites I'm going to talk about, just real quick, they had duplicate technical environments. We made technical fixes that on a core update went up the same amount at the exact same time on two sites that are unrelated product-wise, but built on the same technical structure. Exact same. Changes to one, go to the other. I couldn't get them to believe that the 20% jump, which on a site this large was massive, was because of the technical fixes.
I might lose sleep over what you just said. SEO for C-level executives. Very, very interesting how you brought up that question, because you're right. It comes down very often to, I think that. Okay, I hate when I think that. Okay, based on what? Compared to what?
Yeah.
Like, coming out of what? Where? Why?
Talking about our topic on sites that made mistakes. There is a site, now I don't know the outcome of this mistake, but there was a site that was going to launch 2 sub-brands, multi-billion-dollar brand, well-known around the United States. No SEO at all. They weren't going to do any SEO on the sub-brands, but they were doing massive marketing campaigns with influencers and celebrities. So all those links that they were doing a year before they're going to even launch the site, where were they going to go? All the links that the celebrities would be tweeting out, all the links that they're going to go to the main brand, right? Well, that's great. the main brand already ranked #1 for everything. It didn't need all those extra links. The sub brands needed them, but they can't redirect it once the celebrity tweets it out and people pick it up in the press and stuff. They're not going to go to all those press houses and get them to redirect it to the sub brand. So they had an SEO there. They would say, okay, first we need to get a basic site up, explaining what we're doing. Then we do the influencer campaigns and the marketing and the TV shows and the ads, because as it's talked about, they'll link to this site, even if it's not fully up yet, and we give them the launch date. We've already built a link profile. But if you're not an SEO, that's not the first thing you think about. You know, you're thinking, and it's not wrong that the marketing people, that's what they're thinking. We need to do influencers and stuff. There's a missing piece. And I just call it chief digital officer. But unfortunately, usually companies think that digital site is paid ads, paid marketing. That falls under marketing. That's not SEO. You need someone who understands how all your organic properties work within all the algorithms. How does your site work within Facebook algorithms? How does it work within Twitter algorithms? How does it work in Pinterest algorithms? How does it work on SEO algorithms, right? And then you need that strategy to be top level down and then merged. You don't get a follow link from Twitter, but Twitter does proof or trends. Google does proof and trends out of Twitter because they have a fire hose. So if they need to surface something because it's a trend or a news story or something, they get that information from Twitter right away. And then that can change because they have that little extra in the algorithms where if it's a news story or a quick trend, they'll surface it. Well, a company could make big bank off of that, right? But they don't have an SEO at the top who understands how all this works together. And so their marketing people don't know this, and their technical people don't know this. They may know a little here and a little there. So you need someone that bridges that gap between strategies, because they're still acting like they're a brick and mortar store with an online presence instead of an online presence with a brick and mortar store.
Well, I'm sorry for the media. I'm sorry for the press. I'm sorry for the papers, especially. But if you guys can't figure out how to make money out of free traffic from Google, well, sorry guys, you deserve to disappear. That's just and the way they are now like endangered species, and they are fed. Google actually gives them a lot of money, and not the governments and everything. If you can't adapt, you will eventually. I mean, playing the endangered species card is only going to last so long. The market decides. We decide. The public. If we prefer to read our stuff on a phone or a screen instead of paper, you have to TV replaced radio, computer, phone replaced. Just TV is surprising me. TV is still holding on. It's still the most powerful. I thought the web would take over TV a lot quicker, but no, they're not going anywhere.
You know, and the other thing, if, like, say, just backtracking a little bit, if they don't want to do like a hire, paying someone that's that level, they still should have a consultant like you or myself that they advise on big decisions, and call in and have meetings with and sit down with them and explain why this would work and why this doesn't work, and why because what happens is they do the bad thing, right? And they spend all that time and development money and research development money on the bad thing. Because the bad thing meaning they're not going to get the kick for their dollar that they thought they're going to get. And then the SEOs are like, well, I know why. Because you did this and it doesn't work in the algorithms. So we can fix it. But now the developers have to add that to their project list. Like I had a site in 2019 that wasn't mobile responsive. And they didn't know about mobile first because they had one SEO that they never consulted. So when I got there, I'm sorry, 2018, I got there and I'm like, hey guys, you have to become mobile responsive. You got to get off your MDOT. Google said this like years ago. And I confirmed with John Mueller that if the MDOT and regular site would get Google would get confused in mobile first rankings. So it wasn't ideal. You could work with it, but it would not give you the best results. So they had to redo. They had to add to their project list, their massive project list of developers, to make the site responsive, get it off the MDOT, which took 13 months. Right? So when they gone mobile, when they added that MDOT, had they consulted an SEO? I know exactly when they switched because I gave a talk on switching that Google confirmed in the talk, other talk at the same time. I think it was around 2011 that they confirmed that you don't do MDOTs. We want you to move to responsive. And this is 2018, 2019. They were still on MDOT. Somebody in that time might have told them, but because nobody at the C level had an advisor who said, no, they're right. No, you need to do that. Because consultants, often our job is just to confirm what the SEOs internally already telling them to do, right? To higher level people.
We have the ability to, we both like photography, and they have like a macro lens, and we have a wide angle lens. It's just a different perspective, different view, but you need a consultant to have this wide angle lens, because you're every day in your stuff daily, and days goes by, and you just you can't you need to step back, and consultants, even if Steve Jobs always said consultant is wasted talent.
Though, I will guarantee if any C-level person is watching right now and you contacted like you or me and had us come in with a small team of people to review their site and advise them on their decisions, they would have an instant advantage over their competitors because their competitors aren't doing that.
Oh, for sure.
Right? And so,
for sure.
Yeah.
One of my secret trick is just internal linking, focusing on really it's right now, I think, the most undervalued asset, the power of strong internal linking, because you buy you don't have to buy it. It could be free like WordPress, but you have an infrastructure, you have a CMS that offers you some possibilities to organize your content. Well, that might not be the most efficient way to, from a SEO's perspective, and then it's not even about like losing ranking, but you will see, and sometimes for certain sites. Okay, extreme example is real estate website, national big one, and they had a footer. The footer of the website had random 300 random links that were changing on every page, and of course when I build like nice silos and everything organized, did like times 8 or 9, incredible growth. And what's crazy is the SEO that was did the job. I mean, I was coaching the SEO, and he went to ask for a raise of the salary. I think like 200 euros. The boss said no. The guy left. There were no SEO anymore, and they called me like a couple of years later. They were like, "Oh my God, everything turned. We went back down again." I was like, "Where is the guy?" Well, and he was pretty good because he is now the head of. He's overseeing like I think like 30 SEO consultant for one of the biggest SEO firms in Europe. So I guess the guy had serious skills, right? And for $200 a month, someone who brings you growth like times 8 or 9 on a massive like national level. I forgot the numbers. It was a while ago, but yeah, if you're into tech, pay pay, well, involve your tech people. Be serious about tech. It's marketing is not. No. You need serious tech people because you are in the tech industry, one way or another.
And people don't realize a lot of the time, because I still get CEOs who want to hire me and they're like, so we want to do title tags and content optimization. I'm like, and what else? Well, that's all we need to do. I'm like, okay, I'm not taking that job. Because I guarantee you that there are technical things, site architecture, internal linking, anchor text, site page design, all those things that you can improve. Carts are always horrible. For optimization, I had one cart I worked with. Here's on the mistakes we're talking about, where two things. One, the site had free shipping always. That was one of their things. They didn't have it anywhere on the site till you got to the cart. Except to get to your cart, you had to create an account or sign in. So Christmas season, you're looking, everyone else has free shipping at the top of their site, or $40 shipping for free or whatever, right? This site built on free shipping. Nowhere does it say free shipping till you look in the cart, but you can't get to the cart without signing in or creating an account. So guess what happens when people get to that page? They're like, I just wanted to know the shipping. I don't know if I want to purchase it. I'm not going to waste my time filling out a form.
Exactly.
So I'm leaving. So I told the team that year. I said, why is this like this? Oh, should we take out the login? I go, yeah. Or the page before, put the shipping is free, because it said to be determined until you got to the cart. So they did that, and they got like an instant 20% boost on their cart conversions, because, and this is a multi-billion-dollar company, so they were successful, but just by fixing the cart, they increased their sales 20%. And that's the thing, is on a site, just even if you have the best people in the world, it doesn't mean they're bad designers or bad coders. There's so many moving parts on a site that things get overlooked. And when you bring in a consultant who audits these things, they can show you where your issues are. And so you can get better profits. And the way I always tell you I see it is because our job is standing between people getting hired and fired. And if we improve the site and we improve the traffic and we improve the sales, then people keep their jobs. And I find that that's how I find importance in what we do, is because we're making sure that people can feed their families and they don't get fired because somebody put shipping in the cart that you had to log into. And so
it reminds me of a client where in France, your driving license, if you get a fine, you lose points on your license, and when you have no more points, you have to take like a paying course to get back your points, and big scam at the end, official scam at the end of the day. And my client was the cheapest of everybody. He was the cheapest, okay? And that was like his number one selling point. But it was nowhere said on the page, on the site. I'm like, you're the cheapest and you don't even say it? Like, what? But
why don't you
we went a little bit far from take your hosting seriously to free shipping or you are the cheapest. So now we are getting serious into number 3.
Okay, well, so same site that had the cart issue. Let's see where to start on that one. Let's just start on the one that's easiest to compartmentalize. I looked at Search Console, and they had 2 billion pages being monitored by Google on a site that had 2 million product pages and probably 10,000 others. And so I'm like, what the heck is going on here? How did they have, I've never seen 2 billion. I had to look at it like 5 times and read it out loud. This is in where they like showed you what they're monitoring. Not, this isn't current Search Console where it's like index coverage, all that. This is the old version where it's just like, hey, these are these pages we know about and we're following them. And I was like, how do you get to 2 billion? By the way, that blows the whole crawl budget thing out of the water because they were still crawling most of these pages. So I look and I realize they have a faceted nav on a single page application. So for those that don't know, a single application, if it's not programmed in a certain way, Google's crawler can go in there and make a page for every single item on the site, every SKU, every color, every option that you have, which is what it did. So if you have, let's say, a certain top and it comes in blue and red and orange and small and medium and large, it will pick up all those and create a page. Now, the page doesn't exist anywhere. It's just Google's crawler was able to kick something in the FASTA nav to create the page. So they created 2 billion parameter pages, basically, out of the 2 million products.
Wow.
So, yeah. So we went in and we used a combination of JavaScript and jQuery. I think Ajax is in there too, where basically the link does not appear in the code or on the page. It requires a user action to make the link active. So Google never interacts with the page. If you're new to SEO, you may not know, Google does a 22,000 pixel window. They don't interact with the page itself. And so if it requires JavaScript to make something appear with a click or a scroll, it won't activate it. So we use that to shut down all the parameters on the products so that they wouldn't have 2 billion pages they created. And we got it down to 2 million pages. And our rankings went immediately, immediately a couple months, immediately quite significantly upwards, about 30%.
It was a custom CMS
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't even know if you guys outside of France know about this e-commerce CMS called PrestaShop. It's a Magento wannabe, kind of and they have like a inferior complexity. Well, whatever, doesn't matter. E-commerce, you build your shop easily, couple clicks, and you are on. Okay. Problem was the cart. You were talking about the cart. Okay, the cart was you had the option to put a HTML version or an Ajax version, and if you use the HTML version, every time you click on it, it creates an ID URL. And same principle, Googlebot would just click and click and click non-stop. And it was only a 3,000 product website, but it had 300,000 pages.
Exactly. And so they use the React, which is a single page web application, and a single page, they're called SPAs, single page application. So the way it's programmed in the back end, there is not an official page. The page is like served, but it's not existing. So if you create an HTML site, you have a page for everything. You can inventory it. You know it's there. Google doesn't create other pages. But in these single page applications, Google can dynamically, because single page applications dynamically create pages, can just create pages and pages and pages if you have a leak. So some of the leaks that are most common are faceted navigation links, where you allow Google to roll through all the available options, and it just keeps combining them and making 300,000 or 2 billion pages. So
Google will like try to fill out forms and stuff. Don't you think that the job is reversed from the early days, when back then we had to help index a website, and today we have to stop it from indexing itself too much? So
a little bit. We have to make sure it can crawl it properly, index and crawl it properly.
Yeah, but back then, like I'm talking static websites, right? If you didn't link it properly, if you remember, like the slash, and then you had the folder, like all the files appearing. Yeah. If you didn't have the index page at the root. But yeah, it does feel from an audit point of view that from helping to index, we have to pull the brakes on indexing now.
Well, yeah, and the difference is a lot of the newer development methods, because like React is not technically a stack. Angular is, libraries. Sorry, I got my words backwards. But anyway, a lot of the modern methods of programming create dynamic pages. So the old days they were static. So if you didn't tell Google it was there, it didn't create it
Yeah.
because it couldn't.
Yeah.
Had to be there, had to be present. In the newer types of programming methods, often Google can create a page that doesn't exist because you've allowed it to create it with a leak. Just called a JavaScript leak or faceted nav leaks are the biggest.
Or question mark.
Yeah.
Question mark,
Yeah,
okay? Question mark in the URL and put whatever you want after.
Yeah, exactly. Well, on this site, when we get into the next two, one of the things you could
so let's go.
do.
Let's go. Number two.
So we'll lead up to the biggest one. But one of the things you could do, because it was a site that would dynamically creating its pages, you could just link to the site with a URL, and that would create the page. Because it was dynamically created, there was no lockdown for that done at the development level. So just link and create. So you can imagine who might enjoy being able to just create a page on a site by linking to it with keywords. And
I know
they might be in Russia and they might be porn or pharmaceuticals, but they also, and I will get to the bigger problem after that. So that was one of the problems. So when you have these dynamic page creations like React and Angular and stuff like that, you can create a situation where anybody can create a page on your site that you don't know exists, because unless Google indexes it, because it's not actually a page, the parameters create a dynamic page on the site that lives there until it doesn't anymore. So this site was selling Mozilla downloads, it was selling Viagra, it was selling porn, it was selling. Now we get to the bigger problem is they had what is known as an XSS vulnerability on the site, which is a way that someone can intercept man-in-the-middle attack. As someone comes to your site, they can intercept that person, and then they can direct their experience from there, but use your site's rankings to get traffic. So I looked at the Google Search Console, and there were 4 letters that were the number 4 traffic term on the site. And I was like, I wonder what that product is. And no, product doesn't exist on the site. So that's weird. So let me Google that product. Oh, they're not a product. It's a porn site that is not popular in America, but popular other places of the world. So I'm like, well, how is this porn site ranking? And most sites that have issues with being hacked, it's public information. And so I found out that they had this XSS vulnerability on the site for 20 years. And they had just shut it down the month I started. So
I was right. I was right on my bet. I knew that this was going to be number 2.
No. This is all a big one. Like this could be like 10. So the XSS vulnerability allowed them to use the site not just for ranking purposes, but to redirect traffic. So we had 80,000 visits over 2 months, but they never actually hit a page on the site. They redirected to the porn site. So this is where I say Google is like totally not as good as they say on links. The other vulnerability was in the search box. If you don't shut down a search box to not allow it to create a page for terms not related to your site on dynamically created pages, they can create pages. And so they would put in the search box the spam that they were trying to sell, and it would inject those words into the URL, the H1, the title and description, and the H1 could be any length. So they would put whole paragraphs in there. So when I did a reverse look on the keywords on the site, I found all these spammy keywords. And then I found out that the search box was open and anything you typed in there created a page. So if you add to that, I can use a bot to create pages. They had 200,000 pages that were selling, I think it was Viagra. That was Viagra pages. But I couldn't get anyone at the C level to care. Well, how are they going to run across these? And I'm like, well, if someone does a search for these things, you might come up for these things because they're indexed. These weren't just pages they created. Google had indexed all these pages. And why? Because they set spam links to these pages with the same terms. Google News is a $2 billion, 20-year-old e-commerce site, but it matched the keywords to the anchor text on the URLs
Got
And
it.
that created a link, and Google said, oh, well, this page is relevant for
Mm,
this link, right? So they didn't get devalued. So I
mm,
had to disavow 13 million. And people joke like Russian. I go, no, these were actually from Russia. They were Dart RUs. But to make it more complicated, I couldn't just get rid of the .ru TLD because they actually had a presence in Ukraine. So
oh,
I couldn't just eliminate all links because their
oh
site in
no.
Ukraine, which was a major buyer site for them, would go away. So
Uh,
I
uh,
had to actually sort through and determine how many links to remove and which to remove and eliminate all the porn spam.
so, so,
Which I
so, so you learn some language, I guess. You get some, so you learn some new words in there.
yeah. And that was funny. I was at their company doing this for like 13 hours on the links, and I messaged the guy from IT who used to work at Department of Defense, and I was like, "Hey, if I accidentally click on one of these internally, I just want to let you know so that you don't think I'm looking at porn spam from your offices." And they're like, "If you can get to a porn site from within our offices, please let me know." I was like, "Okay." So it gets bigger than that. So I can't get the C level to care about it. VP C
Uh,
level.
uh, yeah, right.
So not
Yeah.
it wasn't C level, it was VP level.
You,
Until I found that they put blasphemies in there against the Prophet Muhammad.
oh shit.
And I put that in our quarterly review as one of my slides. And you wouldn't believe how fast that became the number one priority on the site to get that fixed, which was really good because a few months later, 3 weeks before Black Friday, on a $2 billion e-commerce site, they got a manual action for user generated content for the spam that was going into the search box. So we were about to experience a massive devaluation right before Black Friday. So what I did is I took the list of URLs they gave us. We fixed those
Mhm.
because the project to fix them was going to take a few months. And I knew that they would review that first, being how big the site was. They weren't going to just automatically devalue. They're going to review what we submitted back. If we submitted back right away, we did. It took them until after Black Friday, right before shipping stopped, to come back and say they denied us, we didn't fix it, and then we went down. So I managed to get us all the way through the holiday without the devaluation applying until right about shipping ended, so it didn't affect us too greatly. Then I worked with the programmers to create a white list because we couldn't do a blacklist because their products had names, sexual names in them because it's fashion.
Mm,
So you couldn't just
mm,
say don't show any of these words. Shut down that search box. Shut down all the pages with any of these content in it. We spent because some of the pages that were created in that search box were legitimate and people trafficked them all the time, but they weren't pages that the site put up. They're sites generated by users. So we had to go through all the URLs and make sure that we only delisted all the URLs that were spammy and didn't accidentally delist URLs that weren't. So we went through 500,000 URLs
oh,
by hand.
oh.
Yeah, we went through 3 million with like, find, seek and find and stuff, AI, all that. But 500,000 had to go through by hand, check their traffic,
Mm,
created the list, the blacklist, and then they removed it as soon as we showed them that when we did the next reconsideration report, they removed the manual action. But that's probably the biggest set of mistakes. And the reason is the site was developed at a time when the developers just made it easy for themselves. And they didn't realize, because they only had one poor guy doing SEO who they didn't really talk to, how massive all this stuff could become. Like you and I know, open search box, spammer delight, like close that thing down ASAP. I check that on every site that I work in e-commerce, right? Um, so, and nobody noticed the keyword that popped up number 4 was weird and looked at that. I look at it and go, why are there 4 letters, random letters? That's not a product I'm aware of. And so had not done all that in-depth stuff, because I'm an SEO with a lot of experience in technical and recovering sites, that would have gone on, and right before Black Friday, they would have lost all their traffic.
It wasn't a case as bad as yours. It was more like how can I explain it? There's all those what we would call zombie pages or whatever, just the spam indexing. against your will, kind of. So yeah, indexing the search box and so on. So we cleaned that out, but then the reports in front of the board, yeah, of course the charts and everything else didn't look the same. Because you removed all that stuff. So they were like, yeah, but I was like, okay, this is, if you kept that way, it's guaranteed that you will hit the wall. So it was maybe I should have let you get penalized by Google, let you crash and burn before removing all that crap, because you just care about, the only thing you care is looking good in front of like when you do your keynote and I mean your slide your deck, and like I don't know, it's just curves, just change the change the scale, they won't notice, like it doesn't matter, they're just big kids anyway. But they were like, yeah, but look, we lost all this stuff. Yeah, of course you lost it, but that was crap, that was not good.
And sometimes you have to let them do that, right? Because you've tried, you've given your case, you've supported it, you documented it so it doesn't fall back on you, and they keep saying no. So you go, okay, you'll come back to me in 6 months, or in the case of the site that didn't want to do any SEO in the sub brands, 13 months, and tell me now you want to do it or do what I told you to do. And because sometimes you just can't fight it. It just doesn't make any sense. You've told them everything, you've explained it, you've laid out the case, and they still don't want to do it. Now, in the case of me putting that slide in, knowing the impact was because I knew that they could suffer greatly. Let's just say the press found it. Let's just say the press found Prophet Muhammad pages.
Oh, no, but
and it was, and we're not going to get into it because it's very graphic. Plus, someone might look for it, and that would be bad if any of them still exist.
Internet remembers everything.
What if the press found that? What if they found that? Because it was obviously ranking for the porn site, so that, for other things, but those pages could be found because you could search them and search. There were like hundreds and hundreds of pages about Prophet Muhammad. So, if I hadn't put that slide in and shocked him to change, then they would have had that penalty and the site would have suffered greatly. Oh, and here's one more mistake at that company. This is the last one. Black Friday week, over the weekend, the guy I work with, he's like, I just noticed we have no Black Friday pages. And I'm like, what do you mean we have no Black Friday pages? And he goes, yeah, what do we do? We have no Black Friday pages. I go, so I contact the product content team, and they're like, well, we just decided we'll put the products up on the homepage the day of Black Friday. I go, no. For anyone who doesn't know, Google massively cleans out the search results and puts up all sorts of Black Friday sale stuff in the search results that week, or even a couple weeks before now. So you're missing out on all that traffic. Mm-mm. So fortunately, I found out, I knew the guy who ran all the Black Friday sites. And I had them, when I got to work on Monday with the guy I worked with, it was awesome. Got them to put up the Black Friday pages. We optimized them real quickly, contacted the guy who had the Black Friday sites, got him to add the updated pages to all their Black Friday sites. And we got at least 80% of our traffic for the week. But no Black Friday pages at an e-commerce site.
Oops.
Sorry. Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So.
I liked, as a conclusion, I think especially for the youngsters who are listening, and I know because I am coaching CEOs and I have a program where it's not only about the technical aspect of SEO, it's also about the business, how to become a SEO and not just learn SEO. And what I noticed is too many of them are too passionate about the client. And at the end of the day, it's not your site, it's not your company. Okay, you have to let it go. You can't get too. It's not your website, okay? Just you've done.
You did your best.
You've did your best. I don't know how you do it, but every single call is mandatory recorded by the client. I know what I say. I want it on on record because someone will try to twist it around and, oh, you said that. Oh, really? You think that I said it? Yeah, let's go back and listen to check. Uh, anyway, or you report or whatever you have to do to protect yourself, because if they keep on not listening and going the other way, uh, it happens. It will happen that will come back to you because, well, you're an easy target and you're on like an
Yeah.
like on a plane where they eject like the seat, like they press the
We get
button.
no we get no respect going trying to get things to go up, but the minute something goes
Yeah.
down, you're the first person. They're like, "So why did this happen?" You're like, "I don't know, because I have nothing to do with that." But yeah, I don't do recordings. That's a good idea to do recordings, but a lot of my companies I'm on all these strict NDAs, and so what I do is recap it in an email with a document outlining everything I told them to do, how to do it, references to like developer docs, that we talked about it. And so at least it's covered that I did tell them, I did inform them of the potential issue. Now, it's also when do you push back, right? So I have one site where they have a GDPR script at the top of the site that's adding 3 seconds page load, just the script alone before you get to any content. With CWVs coming up, that's massive. So I will push very hard on that. But if it's something like you don't want to optimize title text properly, but they're doing okay, I'll push to a certain point, but then I let it go. So there are certain things I will really, really push and be like, really, this has to happen.
Mhm.
Like, I don't push everything. I choose my battles, but I will. But if there's still a point where they just push back, I write the document. I put in my suggestions and recommendations. I put in how they fix it. I send it over, so at least in a PDF format, not a Word doc. And then at least they have it that's been received. There's no way to come back to me and say they didn't know. So
That's the highest level of SEO, when you're able to focus on the 10 to 20%, or just the handful of tweaks that will bring 90% of the results, and let go of everything else because it's not worth it. You have also, as a consultant, you must be able to self-destruct your preconization. For example, I don't know, something like, okay, you edit a Magento website, and you're like, if it was an automatic audit, it would say, hey, you have to externalize all those GS scripts, right? Okay, good luck. Good luck with that. Good luck externalizing all the scripts and all the CSS on the Magento website.
yeah, one
Yeah.
of the biggest things I do when I work for a company is I let I edit down when I prioritize. Hey, if we have time to do these other little things, throw them in your however you're working, whether you're doing agile, whatever your plot of timelines. Whenever 1 year, 2 years, just sometime get it in. But the big things, yes, push for those to get added, because I've worked with developers in developer groups before I was an SEO, because I was a front end dev. I understand they're always overtaxed and under resourced, and so if they feel you're wasting their time with stuff that doesn't move the needle, you will eventually get full pushback. They will not do anything. So I always try to let everybody I'm working with as a consultant know I'm there to help them. I'm there to help them to succeed. If you're a dev and this is really complicated, let me know. It may not need to be done in a month. I said a month because it would be nice to get that, but maybe we can put it out 6 months or 8 months. But I need something else done now because that can move the needle hugely for less effort. So you have to understand not just SEO, but how development works, how content groups work, right? Because you can't give somebody something to do that their process won't allow them to do,
Mm.
or it will make their processes impossible.
Oh.
Because a dev team already has a stack of projects this big with a bunch of others interjected that already moved this stack off the timeline. And now you're coming in, you go, I want these 50 things done. And they're like, good luck. Nice to know you. Right. But if you're like, I need these 3 things done because I know they'll move the needle 20, 30, 50%, 90%.
Mm.
Let's get these 3 things done. And they're like, okay, fine. Can you give me a way to do it? Sure. Here's the developer docs from Google. Here's how you measure that. Here's how you test that. Then they have everything, and they can't come back on you. And they usually don't come back on you. Some do. There are some developers who aren't really good, or they're kind of lazy, and they will push back on everything. So it's also good to know about developer speak, because you know when they're lying, because they just don't want to do it, right?
You
So
you have to. I mean, I'm definitely not at your level of development, but yeah, I coded, started with Basic and Pascal and all that stuff back in the days. I just didn't go into PHP. But the thing is, if you do understand developers and the mindset, because they play with that of being on their own kind of world, and being the the weirdo of the in the company that
they control it all. The dev
yeah
controls your
yeah
timeline, right? So and bribing them with candy and a few beers if they drink, it's never a bad thing. But making them, including them in how you do it, never forcing things on them without getting their input on how difficult that might be for them to put that on the site.
but
But also, go ahead.
I said no, go
I was to
no.
say, but also to know when you're getting pushback that's
Mm.
fake, because they just don't want to do it, because that also happens.
No, I was just adding that the way you explain things, if you know how to talk in code, okay, in a way that they understand, because it's just a different language, it's just a different mindset, and you need to translate into their thought process, which is more or less yeah, out in space. I would say.
Yeah, and you also have to appreciate the amount of work most of them are given with few resources. So you might have a team of 4 people
Mm.
supporting an entire billion-dollar company, or a team of 8, minus, I mean, at a time, the different work hours. But and if you've got 4 to 8 developers supporting, in this case, they were supporting 5 websites, 2 main websites, and billions of dollars of sales. They're And I came in and said, well, you need to be responsive and mobile. And they're like, and when will we do that? But I'm like, well, mobile first isn't moving over until X. They've changed the dates a few times, but at that time it was in 2019 or 20, it was going to move over. And so I said, just as long as you're done then, it just has to be done then. And it has to be rolled out before they shift over to full mobile first. So they're like, okay, we can do that. You're giving me like 15 months to get this done? Yeah. Okay, we can do that, because it wasn't important it got done before mobile first rolls out, but it was very important, because they weren't getting moved over to mobile first because they couldn't meet parity, which, by the way, is really important right now, just to throw it out there if anyone hears this before it happens. March is when they're rolling out the final mobile first. If you have not been moved over to mobile first in Google Search Console, it means they can't find parity between your desktop site and your mobile site in terms of content and what's on the site. And you need to analyze real quickly what's missing or why it's not doing that, so that you don't get left out, because that's when all the ranking factors, except for a few hybrids, move to mobile. And if you haven't been moved to mobile first, that means you have a different site than your desktop, and you may drop in your ranking significantly. So
I wanted to rebound on the people tripping over the web core vitals. And I'm like,
that's so funny though.
come on, guys! It's been so long that we focus on page
Well,
speed and stuff, and you just care now, like.
it's so funny, because I looked up the dates. The original page speed was 2010-11, and then they added it to mobile ranking factors 2018. And then I hear all these people like, does it matter? And I'm like, it matters as much as you thought it mattered for the last decade. Because I
Okay.
know it matters, you know it matters, but there are a lot of SEOs who are like, it doesn't matter. Well, guess what? Then please don't do anything, so I can continue to have the edge over you. Because when I fix those, my site gets major boosts. So
Caffeine. So that when Google changed the not the ranking algorithm, but the infrastructure. If I give an image, it's the same driver, but it goes from like a average car to a Porsche 911 or or GT2. And that was 2009, August 2009, that they upgraded the infrastructure and they started to request performance from websites. So it's been 12 years.
Yeah, and I classify Google algorithms as they started with spam algorithms, then they moved to usability algorithms like page speed and page layout, and
Yeah.
now they moved to quality algorithms. Where it's all the quality factors, all the ranking factors, core updates, quality. So that's how they've broken them down. So they're just moving the page speed metrics, which, by the way, have been in the developer documentation for at least 5 to 6 years, and then updated in 2018 for mobile. So I've been giving that to clients and audits forever. And so now they're moving it and call it page experience factors, and they added a couple others in there like HTTPS, interstitials, things that are already there, but now just lumping them there. So they're moving it into quality for page experience, which is page speed is part of that. Core Web Vitals and shifting is part of that. I think the shifting is the only thing they really added that was new. Everything else is just a standardization of the other page speed metrics that they've always been using to be more versatile across the web and scalable, because before it was based on like things that weren't under the developer's control, and now they're under the developer's control. So the other thing, though, I want to get this term out there. I want it to become a thing. Don't chase the GSC dragon.
Don't chase the GSC dragon.
Yeah, okay. Because you're going to have this Core Web Vitals thing in there, right? Now, page speed's always mattered, but you had to measure it yourself. Now they have Core Web Vitals and 2 screens, mobile and desktop. I checked with John today. They're only doing ranking factors on mobile. But those green lines and dots are 4 weeks old and only a sample of your users over 30 days. So you're not getting, 1, a current representation of your site. 2, you can have page speed issues. I had a site I just evaluated. Horrible page speed issues, all greens, right? Probably because they're sitting at home during the pandemic on their high dollar internets, because they're in Europe, most of them. And so in the US, not so much on the high speed internet. But so that Core Web Vitals are measuring your users' page experience with download from their devices in their environments, and that's where the greens come from. So if a month ago, let's just say the pandemic happened tomorrow, didn't happen, the first lockdown happened. So people went from using mobile devices and work devices and devices in schools and slow devices in all sorts of places, travel, whatever. And all of a sudden, now they're at home on their fast Wi-Fi, right? All your users, well, you suddenly just went all green. And you're like, wow, what did we do? We weren't green before, now we're all green. You're all green because your customers just changed their environment to high-speed internet, right? So you still need to evaluate your site with lab metrics using web page test tools, crawlers like Screaming Frog and Sitebulb, your own Google Analytics, which will tell you how page speed has been doing, because you cannot rely on those 3 greens to be an accurate measure of your site today. And you can't be what you tell developers, and this is chasing the dragon, because you can't tell developers, you need to look at that GSC report and make sure it stays green, because they will just quit doing it at all. Because it's going to change all the time based on a sampling of your users.
Of course.
Yeah. So they all went to a festival. They all traveled. They all went from high-speed Wi-Fi in Europe and went to America for their vacations during the summer. And suddenly their Wi-Fi all dropped. And you're wondering why you suddenly aren't green anymore. Well, that's why. So you really just need to continue. I checked with John today. Continue using the fast 3G, slow 4G, Nexus 5X test environment. Because if you hit those metrics, that are outlined in the developer guide, you get the exact metrics you have to hit, then you'll be green all the time, because your users will always be faster, unless you're in a country where they have slow internet, like you talked about earlier, like in Southeast Asia. They'll always be faster in the Western countries than that metric. But you need to find your lowest common denominator, give that to your developers, give the developers the guide on the metrics they have to meet, and say, this test environment, these metrics, you need to meet this here, because otherwise you're going to they're just going to quit doing it. If you're like, here's the GSC report, we're yellow today, could you fix that? 4 weeks later, we're red. 4 weeks later, we're green. Developers like, I don't have time to constantly work on. And there's also in the feed with Google, with John today, someone posted something you can put in Google Tag Manager that will report on all your pages. So if you do the lowest common denominator, put in a script like that, and then monitor pages with high traffic that have severe issues, then you can just fix the few issues as they pop up, as opposed to like trying to chase that graph. That graph's only for SEOs.
It's a good concept. It reminds me that I forgot to mention when we spoke about mobile that my advice is, guys, don't the web developer toolbar. No, go to, if you're on the US, go to Best Buy or wherever you are with all those devices, and you have to test the website for real on the devices, the different version of the operating system, the real screens and everything, because the emulators don't tell the whole truth, and you might have surprises with so it's common sense, but also we have to stay reasonable with one thing. One single SEO can't hold the entire knowledge. Well, it's pretty rare now, but I remember when I had to deal with Windows servers, ASP type of websites. I had to go get help from someone who knew better than me. So I think also the power or the strength of a good consultant is not only the knowledge, but the people he or she knows.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. If a big company called me today and said, we'd like you to consult with us on improving our entire presence, I would say, okay, but I'm going to bring on X, Y, and Z as well, because they specialize in areas I don't. And if you want a real boost, we want to make sure you have all experts in all areas.
Exactly. And last thing is, don't be, I've seen too many consultants who always need to have an answer, like right away. You can't say, hey, I'll come back to you. Okay. Let me check. Yeah. I'll get back to you.
Don't hire that person that never says, I don't know, because I have to because Google changes it so often, right? They changed the Core Web Vital metrics just in the last couple of weeks. So how many people know that? Probably not a lot yet, because it was only reported like by Barry on Twitter and his site, but at first, but not everyone can know everything. Not everyone can know all the changes. So I always check unless I absolutely know. Like I just talked to John about Core Web Vitals, so I just told you everything that we clarified. But if I hadn't had that conversation today and you asked me a question about Core Web Vitals, I'd be like, you know what? I got to go look that up because I don't know for sure, because it's fuzzy right now. They haven't come out with a lot of clear statements on how things are going to be handled. So I always check. I also double check things I think I know, because it could have changed. In the last time I worked with a site that had the problem a year ago or 2 years ago or 6 months ago.
It's a cognitive bias, because you got hired and you're supposed you are the expert. No, chill, relax. You can't say that you need to double check or whatever. You don't need to pretend that you know everything. It's okay. But that comes with experience, I guess. After you pretend it once, here's what I did. It was I knew that I had in front of me a team of engineers. I forgot what kind of technology they were using, but something weird, and I had no clue how to deal with that. So I had my sysadmin in my ear. The whole team was on the speakers, so I had help inside coming in, and I could deal with those people who were engineers and very high level, because I had that's the only time that I did it that way, because otherwise, you have one meeting, you have 40 minutes to make your point, and it was a battle. It was a battle between okay, we are going this way or this way, and I found this little trick to have the
That's a great idea if you're under a situation like that. And then also, you don't when we talk about knowing like development, I'm not talking about you have to know how to program in Angular or React or PHP, but you do have to understand the SEO implications, but the developer, how much it taxes developers to do something and the limitations. So if I'm like, hey guys, we have 2 billion pages and we have a faceted nav leak, I'll find you a solution because I know that can be done with a JavaScript. Then the solutions are out there as long as I know those basics. And then I hand them it from Google Developer Docs every time if I can get it from Google Developer Docs. I always add that to my search, Google Developer Docs. And then I just hand them the Google Developer Doc who lay out everything down to the code.
of course.
So I just can give them something that they can work from because I understand the problem, but I don't have to understand all the details of how it's implemented. I just have to understand why it's an issue and then find them a solution for that issue. Faceted nav leak, Google Developer Docs. Oh, there's a doc for that. There you go. And we're done. So
It's crazy how much documentation by Google is out there. Very valuable documentation. People spend a lot of time and money on building this documentation, and John included doesn't point it out. You guys got to use that. I mean, how come you always there's good resources out there, official Google resources that didn't exist.
No, we didn't have that
before.
coming up. We had to guess.
It's amazing. I mean, it's a lifesaver when you're like, hey, yeah, see, Google says, I don't, it's not me, Google.
And back when we were growing up in the industry, probably why the industry was so tight, still is because we had to rely on each other completely because there was no documentation except the Webmaster Guidelines and Matt Cutts. And that's literally the source of information you have. But now they have it on everything. And can I do a pet peeve right now?
Go.
On documentation? The Quality Rater's Guide is not an SEO guide. Do not use it as an SEO guide. Do not think everything in there will make your site better for SEO because it doesn't. It's written for quality raters so they can interpret what the sites Google surfaced and they can tell Google if they surfaced high quality sites. That is what that guide is for. It doesn't solve core updates. There is no such thing as EAT. EAT is just a concept that they wrote in the Quality Rater's Guide to represent many algorithms and concepts for SEOs. If you want SEO documentation that will help you better your site, get you out of core update issues, you go to the Webmaster Guidelines, which are not just 10 little things now. They've written out extensive details in the Webmaster Guidelines. They have an SEO 1 guide, a 101 guide. I've been in this industry 15 years. I still read that every year because they may have changed things and put in more details that I, as an experienced SEO, can pick up on and use to my advantage. And then finally, they have the How Search Works. And if you want to know what core updates are affecting, it isn't in the Quality Rater's Guide. Go to How Search Works. It breaks down sites by content quality, content relevance, site quality, everything that the core updates look at. And they tell you when you read all the linked documents to that document, exactly what they're looking for and how they do it. Like how they use NLU, how they use entity structure, how they use query relevance, how technical is involved in site structure, site quality. That is the core updates because I've recovered a bunch of them. Quality Rater's Guide, the problem with it is if you were building a site from scratch, go ahead and use that guide on how to build your site because it'll tell you exactly what Google thinks is a high quality site. But know that not everything in there is going to in some way affect your search rankings. It might. So when you use it to increase visibility or you use it for recovery, you can spend a lot of money on something that means absolutely nothing.
I mean,
and that is my pet peeve for right now.
No, but I'll go a little further because I've spoken with quality raters. In no way, shape, or form they're auditing websites. They are auditing a SERP, okay? Mm-hmm. A search engine result page, the whole thing.
Yes.
So, yes, of course, you have URLs, but that's not, it's a totally different mindset. People don't understand that they don't audit the website. They just, okay, does the whole thing looks good and answers and the intent and all that stuff. But it's a whole. It's not about your page. And second of all, those guys and the EAT thing, once again, no backlinks. Links don't exist. It's
Well, and actually, Gary said the only thing in the algorithms that's really represented by quote EAT are citations and links, inbound links,
no,
at a conference.
in
So
EAT,
he's like,
they don't talk about links. Quality raters don't look at
no,
backlinks.
I'm saying Gary said as SEOs,
Oh,
the
okay, good.
concept of EAT at a conference. Someone asked about the concept of EAT and what does it really represent. And he said nothing. It has nothing to do with Google search. It has to do with quality raters understanding what we look for in a high quality site when they're evaluating search results, like you just said. So does the search results have good quality sites in it or not? That's what they're rating. They're not rating sites for, that guide is not telling you how to SEO a site for Google ranking factors. And you can't know if you haven't done a lot of SEO, which ones are and which ones aren't. I see experienced SEOs adding author bios and paying tens of thousands of dollars of content for a name on author name. And I'm like, was your content bad before? No. Was your content well linked before? Yes. Did you cite facts in there? If it was like a medical site? Yeah. Then you just paid a lot of money that's not going to change anything because Google's not looking at authorship and it's not looking at your bios unless you're a news site. You do have to have bios for news sites. So the point, but the point of that is that just like you're saying, it's for quality raters, and you can go so wrong in how you spend money, time, and resources by using the Quality Raters Guide, unless you're just building a new site and you wanted to build a site in the way that Google would like a site to be built. But that doesn't mean all those things are going to affect your ranking. So
it's not even
you
that.
don't want to use it.
No, it's again like when if you speak, if you have access to, and I had access to I knew people who worked subcontracting for Google, because they're not even Google employees, they are subcontracted. And when you know the levels of those people, I'm sorry to say, but the guy, once he started leaking, well, now that you have that general guide that, okay, they get the job, they get the guide, fine. But what they're really working on is validation of those goddamn machine learning data sets.
Yes. And I was saying the same thing.
You have no view of that. You don't know. Those are like very specific, like regulations, very specific questions. Yeah. And that guide, it's like a starter, beginner, kid starter, whatever you want to call it, but it's absolutely not relevant at all in the real work that do quality raters, which is more experimental, especially trying to improve machine learning. I guarantee you that the guides they get specifically for that data set has nothing to do with the starter guide.
Yeah, we totally agree. So if those who don't know, what they do is they give the quality raters a task to rate. So they do a tweak to the algorithm and they tell the quality raters, we want you to evaluate this goal. And then the Quality Raters Guide gives them ways to evaluate those search results. Are they pulling back sites that Google wants to surface? So in the SERP, not is this site a good site, but just is Google pulling back quality or junk? Like, did we just pull back all spam? Quality Raters Guide, you can evaluate, is it spam or is it not? That's what it's there for. I'm just saying, if you had a brand new site, you've not designed a site before, you're new to site design, and you're like, I don't know how to design that. I want to make sure I think of SEO, or I do a good site that Google might like. You can use that as a template. Like, if I put everything in there, I'm not going to design a bad site. I may put in things there that don't matter to ranking factors, but they'll be good for users, whatever. But if you already have a site, using that guide can cause you to make a lot of changes that are irrelevant, or even changes that can harm the site, because the site may be performing off of what you currently have, and you change it to the Quality Raters Guide, and it changes how the site's evaluated, like topically or like that.
Okay, developers.google.com, beginner SEO.
Yes,
All
SEO,
right,
webmaster,
SEO starter
webmaster,
guide. There is a SEO starter guide.
yes, and webmaster guidelines, and how search works.
No,
Few
on the
SEO
on
are good
the
at how search works.
on the developer, even on the developers .google.com, there's an amazing. Well, it's for beginners, but that's what you should read. Don't.
Well, even like I said, even experienced SEO should go back and read the beginner guidelines because they changed over time because how Google changes the algorithms. So you might have think that something from 2009, the last time you read them, because now you're experienced, changed dramatically, and you read in there, you see in the text because you're experienced, oh, this is what Google's saying here. This has changed slightly. So like the Quality Raters Guide even specifically says this is only for the types of sites for our goals for the algorithms that we test. So it immediately told you it's not an SEO guide, but a lot of SEOs decided it was because people told them it was. But the SEO 101 guide or the Webmaster Guidelines or Google Developer Doc, how search works, those tell you specifically what Google's doing with algorithms and what they're doing with query relevance and what they're doing with NLU and NLP so that you can be a better SEO. Quality Raters Guide does not make you a better SEO.
It's pretty frustrating because it's sexy. It's appealing. It's secret. Oh, it's the quality raters guidelines. Okay. It's not sexy enough. The official SEO starter guide. No, that's not good enough for you. You have to try to find something hidden that doesn't exist and is just an illusion.
Well, and I'm an academic by education, and it's called a spurious correlation. So in the summertime, crime goes up, and so does ice cream sales. So spurious correlation would say, well, ice cream sales went up, must cause crime. Or crime must have caused ice cream sales to go up, but they don't because there's another variable involved. So a lot of times what people do who don't have a lot of familiarity with the algorithms is they look at a bunch of sites, they see like they have this or that common factor, and they assume that factor, because they saw it in the Quality Raters Guide, meant that is why those sites are ranking. But if you ask Google, that factor has nothing to do with rankings. It's just in the Quality Raters Guide because it's in the Quality Raters Guide. So that's why it's dangerous to use it, because you may assume things not true. But if you go to the Webmaster Guidelines SEO 101 and how search works and they say it there, well, then you know that's what you need to do, right? So
you know my link to the spurious correlations.
No, I don't. I love. I love us.
It's if I'll send it to you, but it's for example, U.S. spending on science, space, and technology is exactly the same curve than suicide by hanging, strangulations, and suffocation.
Well, and of course they're related.
It's the per capita cheese consumption is exactly the same the number of people who died by becoming tangled in their bed sheets.
Well, I can see how that's related. They took cheese to bed.
Divorce rate in Maine is exactly the same than per capita consumption of margarine. Oh,
that might be correlated. Not really. I'm just kidding.
Per capita consumption of mozzarella cheese correlates with civil engineering doctorates awarded.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, you have to. I'll give you that link because that's what you have to throw at people when they start to to go a little bit nuts about the. Yes, I found. I studied a million URL and I find 7 secrets of SEOs. Anyways, my dear, we are hitting the 2-hour limit. Well, it's not a limit.
Today?
It's been 2 hours that we are talking.
You know what's interesting is I do get people that actually watch the whole thing, which just surprises me, but it's awesome and says something for the style you're doing here.
Well, you balance out, and I need you because with Judith and her like G-Spot SEO. It's it's hard to
Ron
handle.
liked that one. Ron liked that. It must mean it's a ranking factor.
G-Spot SEO, but you have you bring in a whole different vibe that is a lot more appeasing for me. That Judith makes me work because you have to
It's
you,
so smart.
you have to follow the
Yeah.
the whole like teasing around and the whole. Anyways, this is the end of this episode for SEO stories. But Christine will be back on very soon. It's 100% my fault. We made appointments and we need, like I said in the introduction, I'm lost in space. I don't know what day. I don't know.
Same.
So if I don't get like in oxygen tank in the next
Road first.
in the next following days, we'll meet again in a podcast.
That sounds good to me. Thank you for having me again. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.